Hey guys, how you doing? In case you're wondering why my gi looks nice and new, it's my new summer weight gis have just arrived. So if you're in the club, then come and get your summer weight gi. Anyway, a subject came up in class last night, and I thought that it would be ideal to do a video about it if I haven't done one already. And it's about students' expectations, in particular white belts' expectations of themselves. And I think that there's a massive fallout rate in a lot of gyms that I don't tend to suffer in mine. And I think because I'm very honest with the white belts about what I expect from them and kind of what they should expect in themselves. I think that with the popularity of jiu-jitsu and everyone's like, it's this like magical martial art where small people can beat big people, and that is completely true. I felt it myself and have experienced it many times, but I think that because there's a bit of a mystique around the art, it draws a lot of people to it, and a lot of smaller kind of insecure people, not particularly athletic, because they're like, well, that sounds like a martial art that might be like effective for me, right? And they come and join the class and they jump in and stuff like this. Now, if it's a normal gym where like day one they start wrestling and fighting each other. So for example, I gave the example last night. We were doing like a Kimura lock last night, right? And I'm like, don't even expect this to work and live rolling for like at least 3 months, yeah? Because you're rolling and fighting with people who know what you're going to do. They've watched you. They've been practicing it themselves. There's a good chance they've even been at the gym longer than you, right? So for the first 2 years, the preparation leading up to blue belt is really about you versus untrained people or people in the street who don't know jiu-jitsu, right? Okay, and that's really what street readiness is all about. Is like escaping headlocks and avoiding punches and how to clinch properly, and if you fall to the ground, how to get up off the ground without getting your face kicked in, you know, like basic stuff like that. And even then there's like 100 and something techniques that they have to go over. You don't have to master all of them. That's not what I expect. I reckon you'll be really good at like 20, right? But you need exposure to all the other stuff so that you're aware of it. Yeah, so if someone grabs your arm or your leg or your collar in a certain way, then you'll go, okay, so like this thing is possible because I've seen it in training. It's not like my favorite move, but I've seen it, I've been exposed to it, and therefore I'm aware of it. So therefore I'm less likely to get caught with that thing. You know, like can openers, for example, like they're illegal in tournaments for the most part, but it's something that in the street, people 100% will do it. You know, they might not know what they're doing, they're just grabbing your head and trying to pull on it, but you need to know how to escape. You need to know what a can opener is and how to deal with it, because like that's something realistic that can happen in the street. Scarf hold is another example. It's a position that we don't use a lot past white belt really in jiu-jitsu, maybe a little bit at blue belt, because of the fact that it's reasonably easy to stop. It gives you access to the back if they mess it up at all. But it's something that is really super common in the street. It's really common in like any schoolyard scrap or fight. People grab you by the head and throw you to the ground and hold your head and want to punch you in the face. So it's a position that in the street is really useful, right? Okay, but after a year or two of jiu-jitsu, it's probably not going to be that effective in the academy, right? Why? Because you're exposed to it, because people know how to stop it. They know, they're aware of it. So as a white belt who's just learnt like a Kimura or a new move and then getting thrown to the lions and free training straight afterwards and expecting that to work, it's no wonder that a lot of them quit. They're like, because they don't blame the art, they blame themselves. They're like, this is an amazing art, I've heard so many amazing things about it, you know, the testimonials from other students and what goes on social media and the UFC, everyone raves about it. So it can't be the art, it must be me. And so they leave. They just think that they're shit and they leave. The reality is that they're a white belt, yeah? That's what is going on, yeah? Also, I speak to my white belts about failure. I go, when you do a move, even if you've practiced it for 6 months or longer, expect it to fail. And rather than be shocked by that, I talk about it very early on, like day one. I'm like, okay, so when you do this move, expect it to fail. What are you going to do if it fails? And always look at things as that way, which is, what am I going to do? What's the most likely response? And then what am I going to do about that? And then don't go down the rabbit hole, because you can do what if until the cows come home, right? So always think about the move that you're doing, practice that. Think about how they're most likely going to counter it, and get your opponent to do that, or to start doing that move, to see how you can use their counter to your benefit. And there should be another basic technique, like last night we were doing Kimura and hip bump sweep, which is a perfect combination. As you go for the Kimura, when they sit up to resist it, they give you the hip bump sweep. If you sit up for the hip bump sweep and they push into you, trying to push you onto your back, they give you the setup for Kimura. And in the same way that judo always teaches a forward throw and a backward throw, yeah, always using the line of kazushas like the center line, then it's exactly the same in jiu-jitsu. So for all the white belts out there, and even blue belts, or anybody that's struggling, but especially white belts, yeah, you are a white belt, yeah. Bring your expectations down, yeah. It's okay for things to fail, expect them to fail, plan for that failure, and then go back to class and do some more of it. And I would advise, like at my academies, then we don't have any rolling whatsoever for the first 25 classes. I would almost like to extend it to 50, but I find that 25 is pretty good. Anybody coming in who's kind of athletic, it gives them a chance to like relax, because, you know, a lot of the times they want to go out there and get real physical and stuff like this, and they're just not allowed to. Yeah, they're allowed to drill, and then when everybody else who has their first stripe is rolling, they can either leave, they can watch, or they can continue to drill the move that they've just learned, which is what I encourage them to do, because more reps are better, right? And what it does is it allows them to watch the intensity rather than guess. Because to a lot of people getting involved in like a role like that, if they're unskilled, like it creates this whole fear response, the whole fight or flight thing, and they start to fight. And they don't know what they're doing. And it's a good chance they're going to hurt themselves or hurt the other person, or the other person's going to have to ramp up like what they're doing and apply a technique harder, yeah, to try and settle this beginner down. And then that guy doesn't know how to escape it properly, and then he hurts himself, and then ends up leaving, you know, and we don't want that. There's, you know, jiu-jitsu is too good for people to like try it and then leave, right? So like we've got to think about like, why are these people leaving, yeah? And it doesn't happen often at my place, but, you know, I get quite a few students from other schools where they're just thrown to the lions. They're kind of quiet, humble, maybe mildly insecure people anyway, which is why they're pursuing jiu-jitsu and martial arts. But then they get thrown to the lions. They're like, this is how we do it. They have a terrible time, and they like almost resign themselves to the fact that like jiu-jitsu is not for them, or they're not for jiu-jitsu, which is not true. And then they come to my academy, and it's a completely different experience. They're not even allowed to wrestle. Everyone's real friendly. They have a good time. And like in 25 classes, you kind of know your way around the mat a little bit. You've met everybody on the mat. You've established relationships. You have rapport and friendships, and you kind of see the vibe of what goes on, and you can see the intensity or the lack of intensity, yeah, that's expected in the academy. Sure, some of the higher grades might go a little bit harder, but like they're more skilled, they're less likely to hurt themselves. And they can watch that, and it's fun, and it's, you know, it's encouraging and motivating to see that happening. Yeah. So for all the white belts out there, yeah, take care, look after yourselves, and you know, like, just be aware that like by far the majority of academies, in my opinion, like are just going too hard. I mean, that's the way that I started. You know, we were thrown to the wolves, and like 90% of people left, 10% stayed. They became instructors. They were all tough, athletic guys. But then the 90% that left were probably the ones that could do with jiu-jitsu the most, because they're not athletic, and they're not aggressive, and they're not really super competitive. Anyway, that's my little video on expectations. Yeah, right? So hopefully, if I'm not your coach, hopefully your coach will have the same conversation with you, will ease you into your training so that you can enjoy it, and you have the whole rest of your life to wrestle. yeah, to get physical and all that sort of stuff. And I know it's very exciting. It's a lot of fun doing it, and wrestling and rolling looks like a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun if you know what you're doing, yeah, right? It's a minefield if you don't, right? Take your time, take your 25, take your 50 classes and relax. Drill the techniques a lot, yeah, and enjoy the journey. Anyway, I'm out of here. Time to put my nice lightweight summer gear to use. Cool. Cheers, guys.